Imagine waking up one morning to find that everything you know, everything you built, your entire civilization was gone by nightfall. The walls of your city, the temples of your gods, the markets, the homes, even the names of your kings and ancestors, all erased as if history itself had decided to wipe you away. For most of us, this sounds like a nightmare, something too extreme to be real. And yet, history is filled with tales of civilizations that did not decline slowly over centuries, but instead vanished almost overnight. Their legacies turned into dust, their languages lost, their people scattered or destroyed. These are not just stories of forgotten villages or abandoned ruins. These are stories of entire civilizations, vast and complex societies that thrived with culture, art, and power and then suddenly disappeared. Today, we count down 10 such civilizations, great societies erased from history overnight. Some were destroyed by nature, others by war, betrayal, or plague, and some remain a complete mystery with no clear reason why they fell at all. This is not just a journey into the past. It is a journey into the fragility of human achievement, and a chilling reminder that no matter how powerful, no matter how grand, no civilization is truly immune to the forces of fate. So, let us step into the ruins of time and uncover 10 civilizations that were erased almost overnight. 1. The Indus Valley Civilization, a silent collapse. Long before the great empires of Mesopotamia and Egypt flourished, there was a civilization thriving along the banks of the Indus River. The Indus Valley Civilization, also known as Harappan Civilization, was one of the world's earliest urban societies. They built cities with advanced drainage systems, intricate trade networks, and evidence of governance that seemed astonishingly modern. But then, around 1900 BC, it began to vanish. Cities that once bustled with life, Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, became silent. Unlike other ancient civilizations, there is no evidence of massive wars or invasions marking their end. Instead, it seems to have been sudden and almost invisible. Within a short span, an entire civilization was gone. Theories abound. Some suggest a catastrophic drought. Others claim a shift in river patterns cut them off from water. Still, others believe disease swept through their crowded urban centers. Whatever the cause, the Indus Valley Civilization, one of the great cradles of humanity, vanished, its script undeciphered and its legacy scattered in fragments. 2. The Maya, cities swallowed by jungle. The Maya civilization was once a thriving powerhouse of astronomy, mathematics, and monumental architecture. Their stepped pyramids, intricate glyphs, and calendar systems still inspire awe today. But in the 9th century CE, their cities collapsed in rapid succession. In a short period, great centers like Tikal, Copan, and Palenque were abandoned. The jungles of Central America swallowed their stone pyramids, leaving future explorers baffled at how such a mighty culture could fall so quickly. Archaeologists have discovered evidence of prolonged droughts, which could have devastated agriculture and trade. Coupled with internal conflict and overpopulation, the once great Maya cities collapsed almost overnight. While descendants of the Maya people still live today, their ancient urban centers and cultural power were erased, leaving behind ruins haunted by silence. 3. The Minoans, Atlantis of the ancient Aegean on the island of Crete. The Minoan civilization thrived thousands of years ago. With their grand palaces at Knossos, vibrant frescoes, and seafaring dominance, the Minoans were at the heart of Mediterranean trade. But sometime around 1600 BCE, their world collapsed almost overnight. The likely culprit was the catastrophic eruption of Thera, modern-day Santorini. The eruption was one of the largest volcanic events in recorded history, creating massive tsunamis and ash clouds that devastated Crete. Within a generation, the Minoans were gone, their cities weakened and vulnerable to foreign invaders. Many believe this disaster may have inspired Plato's tale of Atlantis, a powerful civilization swallowed by the sea in a single night. From the river valleys of India to the lush jungles of Central America, from volcanic islands to lost cities swallowed by the earth, these are just the beginning. Civilizations that thought themselves eternal, undone almost in an instant. And the story does not end here. In fact, the deeper we go, the stranger the disappearances become. 4. The Hittite Empire, an empire that vanished in flames. The Hittites were once a dominant force in the ancient Near East, based in Anatolia, modern-day Turkey. They rivaled Egypt and Babylon in power. Their kings signed treaties, their armies fought in epic battles like Kadesh, and their chariots thundered across the land. For centuries, they shaped the destiny of the ancient world. But then, in the 12th century BCE, the Hittite Empire collapsed seemingly overnight. Their capital, Hattusa, was burned and abandoned. Clay tablets once recording treaties and royal decrees were left to crumble into dust. What happened remains one of the great puzzles of history. Theories suggest invasions by the so-called Sea Peoples, a mysterious confederation that swept across the Mediterranean, destroying kingdoms in their path. Others point to famine or internal strife. Whatever the cause, an empire that once rivaled Egypt disappeared in what seemed like the blink of an eye, its name forgotten for nearly 3,000 years until rediscovered by archaeologists in the 20th century. 5. The Olmecs, the mother civilization of Mesoamerica before the Maya and Aztec empires dominated Central America, there were the Olmecs. Known for their colossal stone heads and mysterious culture, the Olmecs are often called the mother civilization of Mesoamerica. They developed early writing systems, complex religious traditions, and left behind remarkable art and monuments. Yet around 400 BCE, the Olmecs disappeared. Their ceremonial centers were abandoned, their culture dissolved, and their once thriving civilization vanished. Unlike the Maya, who left written records, the Olmecs left behind only Clu's enigmatic stone heads staring silently into the future. Why they vanished is still debated. Some point to environmental changes that disrupted agriculture, while others believe internal conflicts or outside invasions played a role. Regardless, their disappearance was swift and shocking, erasing one of the earliest great cultures of the Americas. 6. Cahokia, the forgotten North American city in what is now Illinois, across the Mississippi River from modern St. Louis, once stood the largest city in pre-Columbian North America. Known as Cahokia, it was a massive settlement with over 20,000 people at its height, complete with plazas, temples, and enormous earthen mounds that still rise from the ground today. Yet by the 14th century, Cahokia was abandoned. The city that once thrived with trade, art, and religion suddenly fell silent. No enemy armies stormed its walls, no great disasters are recorded, it was simply gone. Scholars suggest overpopulation, deforestation, and food shortages may have contributed. Climate change might also have triggered devastating droughts. Whatever the cause, Cahokia's decline was rapid, erasing what had once been a powerful urban center that rivaled medieval European cities in size. 7. The Khmer Empire, the sudden fall of Angkor. The Khmer Empire, centered in modern-day Cambodia, was one of the greatest civilizations of Southeast Asia. Its capital, Angkor, boasted the magnificent temple complex of Angkor Wat, towering over a sprawling city of hundreds of thousands. The Khmer built vast reservoirs and canals, mastering water management in a tropical land. But by the 15th century, Angkor was abandoned. The jungle swallowed its temples, and the once thriving heart of the Khmer Empire fell silent. How could such a powerful civilization vanish so suddenly? Evidence suggests prolonged droughts, followed by devastating floods, disrupted their water management system. Combined with political instability and foreign invasions, the Khmer Empire crumbled. The shift happened within just a few generations, leaving behind some of the world's most breathtaking ruins as a reminder of their lost glory. 8. The Nabateans, guardians of Petra. Hidden within rose-red cliffs of Jordan lies Petra, the ancient city carved into stone by the Nabateans. This civilization controlled vital trade routes, growing wealthy from spices, incense, and caravans that crossed the desert. Their architecture was stunning, their water systems ingenious. But by the 2nd century CE, Petra began to decline. By the 7th century, the Nabateans had disappeared almost entirely. Once a bustling trade capital, Petra became a ghost city. Historians suggest shifting trade routes and Roman conquest weakened the Nabateans. Earthquakes may have further devastated the city. What is astonishing, however, is how quickly their identity vanished. Though Petra survived in stone, the Nabateans themselves were erased, leaving behind little more than their awe-inspiring monuments. Civilizations rise like mighty rivers, yet sometimes they dry up overnight, leaving behind only traces of their former glory. From the Hittites of Anatolia to the jungle-hidden temples of Angkor, from colossal Olmec heads to the ghost city of Petra, the theme remains the same: no society is too powerful to vanish in an instant. And as we continue, the stories grow darker. Some civilizations may not have simply fallen to droughts or shifting trade routes. Some may have been swallowed by cataclysm, wiped away by disasters so sudden they border on myth. 9. The ancestral Pueblones, cities in the cliffs high in the mesas and canyon walls of the American Southwest. The ancestral Pueblones, also known as the Anasazi, built entire cities within stone cliffs. Their dwellings, carved into the rock faces of Cahokia and Mesa Verde, were marvels of engineering. With complex kivas, multi-storied homes, and an intricate culture, they thrived for centuries in one of the harshest landscapes on Earth. But around the late 13th century, these settlements were abandoned almost overnight. The cliff dwellings that once echoed with life became silent stone shells. What happened? Archaeologists point to a severe drought that lasted decades, making agriculture impossible. Starvation and conflict may have followed, forcing mass migrations. Others argue social upheaval or invasions by neighboring tribes drove the Pueblones away. Whatever the reason, their departure was so sudden that tools, pottery, and homes were left behind as though people had vanished mid-life. Today, their descendants live in smaller communities across the Southwest, but the grandeur of their cliffside cities was lost forever. 10. Easter Island. The collapse of Rapa Nui far out in the Pacific Ocean lies one of the most isolated inhabited places on Earth. Easter Island, or Rapa Nui. Here, the Rapa Nui people erected the colossal Moai statues, massive stone heads that have fascinated the world for centuries. These statues were symbols of power and spirituality, requiring extraordinary effort and organization to create. Yet, by the 18th century, the thriving Rapa Nui culture had collapsed. When Europeans arrived, the society was fragmented and in decline. What had happened to this once mighty island civilization? The prevailing theory is ecological collapse. The Rapa Nui cut down trees to transport and erect their statues, eventually deforesting the entire island. Without trees, they could not build canoes for fishing, soil eroded, and food became scarce. Famine, civil war, and possibly even cannibalism followed. The collapse happened with shocking speed, reducing a proud civilization to ruins within a few generations. Others suggest European contact brought disease and slave raids, accelerating the decline. Either way, Easter Island became a tragic example of how human ambition can destroy its own foundation. Echoes of vanished civilizations. As we look back on these stories, the Pueblones leaving their cliff homes, the Rapa Nui carving monuments until their land gave way, we are struck by one haunting truth: civilizations do not always fade quietly into history. Some disappear suddenly, violently, almost as though history itself conspired against them. Their ruins stand today as a warning. Stone cities left empty, temples consumed by jungle, colossal heads staring into the ocean, waiting for answers that may never come. But the list is not complete yet. Beyond these familiar tales lie other forgotten worlds, wiped away almost overnight, some so mysterious that historians still cannot agree on why they vanished. 11. The Sumerians, the first civilization to disappear. Long before Rome or Greece, the Sumerians built the world's first great civilization in Mesopotamia. They invented writing, developed mathematics, and constructed towering ziggurats that touched the skies. Their city-states such as Ur and Uruk flourished with trade and culture. Yet around 2000 BCE, the Sumerians disappeared. Their cities were conquered by neighboring powers, their culture absorbed into Babylonian and Assyrian empires. In just a short span, the people who had laid the very foundations of human civilization were gone. How could such an advanced society vanish so suddenly? Scholars suggest environmental collapse, salinization of farmland from over-irrigation or invasions by Amorites and Elamites. Whatever the cause, the end came swiftly. Today we know them only from fragments, cuneiform tablets, crumbling temples, and echoes of myths that would later shape much of Western religion and literature. 12. The lost city of Ubar, the Atlantis of the sands in the deserts of Oman. Legends tell of a city called Ubar, also known as Iram of the Pillars. Said to be rich and powerful, Ubar thrived as a trading hub for frankincense and other precious goods. It was so renowned that it earned the nickname Atlantis of the Sands, but then, according to legend, it was destroyed overnight, swallowed by the desert as punishment for arrogance. For centuries, Ubar was thought to be pure myth, until satellite images in the 1990s revealed buried ruins in the desert, sans remnants of collapsed towers and roads leading nowhere. Had the city truly been buried by shifting sands? Some archaeologists believe a massive sinkhole may have swallowed parts of Ubar, causing its sudden collapse. Others think shifting trade routes simply doomed the city. Whatever the truth, Ubar remains a haunting reminder of how quickly the desert can erase even the grandest of civilizations. Civilizations can vanish in fire, water, sand, or silence. Some were brought down by their own hubris, others by forces beyond their control. In every case, their disappearance was so swift, so shocking, that it feels as though time itself struck them down. But the most unsettling truth is this: if it happened to them, it could happen to us. 13. The Mycenaeans, the fall of Greek heroes before the classical age of Athens and Sparta. Greece was ruled by the Mycenaeans. They built palaces at Mycenae, Tiryns, and Pylos, and their warriors inspired the legends of Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. They dominated the Aegean world with trade and military might, their fortified citadels a symbol of power. Yet around 1200 BCE, their world collapsed almost overnight. Palaces were burned, writing systems disappeared, and the entire region fell into what historians call the Greek Dark Age for centuries. The grandeur of Mycenaean Greece was forgotten, remembered only in myth. What caused such a sudden fall? Theories include invasions by the mysterious sea peoples, earthquakes, internal rebellions, and famine. It may have been a combination of all these, a perfect storm that toppled an empire in a single generation. Their legacy survived in stories of heroes and gods, but the civilization itself was erased. 14. The Khmer Empire, the lost power of Africa. In the highlands of Ethiopia and Eritrea once thrived the Aksumite Empire, one of the great powers of the ancient world. From the 1st to the 7th century CE, Aksum dominated trade between Rome, India, and Arabia. They built towering stone obelisks, minted coins, and even adopted Christianity as a state religion. But by the 8th century, the empire declined rapidly. Trade routes shifted, drought struck the region, and internal struggles weakened the state. Within a few generations, Aksum went from being a global trading power to a forgotten kingdom hidden in the highlands. Its sudden disappearance shocked the world. Medieval travelers knew little of it, and for centuries, Aksum's greatness remained unknown to outsiders. Today, only its monumental stelae and ruined churches testify to the empire that vanished seemingly overnight. 15. The Hohokam, vanished canal builders in the deserts of modern Arizona. The Hohokam people built a thriving civilization. They engineered massive canal systems to irrigate crops in one of the driest regions of North America. Their villages flourished for centuries, producing pottery, jewelry, and trade goods. But by the 15th century, the Hohokam disappeared. Their canals dried, their settlements emptied. Unlike other civilizations, their collapse left almost no written records, only silent ruins in the desert. Why they vanished remains uncertain. Some archaeologists suggest prolonged drought, floods, or disease. Others believe social unrest or warfare forced them to scatter. Whatever the cause, their departure was swift, leaving behind only traces of the ingenuity that allowed them to thrive in the desert for so long. 16. The Guanches, the forgotten people of the Canary Islands. When Europeans first arrived at the Canary Islands in the 15th century, they encountered the Guanches, an indigenous people with a unique culture. The Guanches lived in caves, practiced mummification, and spoke a language unlike any other in Europe. They resisted Spanish conquest fiercely, but within just a few decades their society collapsed. By the early 16th century, the Guanches were gone erased by war, enslavement, and disease. Their culture disappeared almost overnight, replaced by colonial settlers. Today, only a few words and traditions remain, fragments of a people who vanished in one of the most sudden and tragic erasures of history. Patterns of sudden collapse across continents and millennia, the stories repeat themselves. Civilizations that thrived for centuries or even millennia suddenly disappeared in the span of a lifetime. Sometimes the cause was environmental droughts, floods, or volcanic eruptions. Other times it was war and invasion, when empires were toppled by enemies they could not resist. In many cases, disease and famine played silent roles, erasing entire societies without a single battle. But one of the most striking patterns is hubris. Civilizations often expanded beyond their limits, exhausting the very resources that sustained them. The Rapa Nui cut down their forests. The Hohokam pushed their canals to the breaking point. The Maya stretched their population until drought turned their fields to dust. In their ambition, they sealed their own fate. And then there is the mystery factor. Cities like Ubar and Cahokia defy simple explanations. They remind us that history is not a neat story with clear beginnings and endings. Sometimes whole peoples vanish into the shadows, leaving behind ruins that whisper questions but rarely give answers. Civilizations rise and fall, it is the rhythm of history. But when they fall overnight, the shock is greater, the silence more haunting. The ruins left behind are not just broken stones. They are warnings carved into the earth, that nothing lasts forever, and that even the mightiest can vanish in the blink of an eye. And yet, even in their disappearance, these civilizations endure. Their temples, their statues, their ruins, they remind us of the resilience, the creativity, and the fragility of humanity. They are echoes of our own future, should we fail to learn from the past. The final word civilizations are often seen as permanent, uncheckable monuments of human progress. When we think of Rome, China, or Egypt, we imagine endurance across centuries, power stretching across continents, and legacies etched into stone. Yet the truth is far more fragile. The civilizations we have explored, the Indus Valley, the Maya, the Minoans, the Hittites, the Olmecs, Cahokia, the Khmer Empire, the Nabateans, the Pueblones, the Rapa Nui, the Sumerians, Ubar, the Mycenaeans, the Axumites, the Hohokam, and the Guanches tell us a story not of permanence but of vulnerability. What unites them all is not their achievements, though those were great. It is the swiftness of their disappearance. Entire societies that had thrived for centuries collapsed not in slow decline, but in a matter of years, sometimes even a single generation. One day they were there, vibrant and full of life. The next, they were gone, leaving behind little more than ruins and legends. Lessons from lost worlds. What lessons can we draw from their sudden ends? The first is that nature is merciless. Droughts toppled the Maya, floods overwhelmed the Khmer, and volcanic eruptions ended the Minoans. Civilizations that believed themselves masters of their environment discovered how fragile that control truly was. The second lesson is that hubris can destroy. The Rapa Nui exhausted their resources building monuments, and the Hohokam stretched their water systems to breaking point. In their ambition, they undermined the very foundations of survival. The third is that conflict and conquest leave nothing untouched. The Hittites, Mycenaeans, and Guanches were all victims of war, invasion, and domination. No matter how powerful an empire may seem, there is always a force external or internal that can tear it down. Finally, there is the lesson of forgetting. Many of these civilizations were not just destroyed, they were erased from memory. For centuries, the names of the Hittites, the Olmecs, and Cahokia were unknown. They had to be rediscovered, pieced together from stone fragments and buried artifacts. It is a reminder that history itself is fragile and memory fades faster than we like to believe. Echoes that still speak, and yet, even in disappearance, these civilizations speak to us. The towering moai of Easter Island staring out to sea tell of human creativity and ambition, but also of limits ignored. The silent ruins of Mohenjo-Daro whisper of a people whose script we still cannot read, a voice cut off mid-sentence. The canals of the Hohokam, still visible in Arizona's deserts, show the ingenuity of people who turned barren land into thriving farms. The stones remain, even when the people are gone. They remind us that every civilization leaves a mark, even when its story is interrupted. Could it happen again? Perhaps the most chilling question is this: Could it happen to us? Modern civilization often sees itself as immune to the fate of the ancients. We have technology, global trade, and advanced science. We imagine ourselves untouchable, but history whispers otherwise. Environmental collapse, resource exhaustion, political division, global conflict, these are not relics of the past. They are dangers we face today, just as the Maya and the Rapa Nui once did. The speed with which past civilizations vanished should serve as a warning. We are not exempt from history's cycle. One shift in climate, one catastrophic disaster, one failure of leadership, and what seems permanent could dissolve into memory. Like the Hittites or the Olmecs, we could one day become a forgotten name, our cities swallowed by jungle, desert, or sea. The haunting power of erasure. There is something haunting in the thought that entire civilizations can vanish without leaving a trace. Not only their cities, but their stories, their languages, their dreams all erased as if they never existed. And yet the ruins we uncover prove that they did exist, and they remind us of the fragility of human endeavor. History is not a straight line of progress. It is a cycle of rise and fall, of creation and destruction. And sometimes it is a story cut off suddenly, leaving us with mysteries we may never solve. Closing reflection. So when we walk among the ruins of Angkor, when we gaze at the Moai of Easter Island, when we stand in awe before the pyramids of the Maya or the palaces of the Minoans, we are not just looking at stone. We are looking at warnings carved into the earth by civilizations erased overnight. These stories remind us that human greatness is real, but so too is human fragility. The line between thriving and vanishing is thinner than we like to admit. In the end, the civilizations we have explored are not just echoes of the past, they are mirrors. They show us who we are, what we value, and what we risk if we forget the lessons of history. 10 civilizations, each with their own story, each with their own sudden end. 10 voices silenced, yet still speaking across the centuries. Their ruins are their message, that nothing is eternal, and that survival depends not on power or wealth, but on balance, wisdom, and humility. And perhaps the greatest lesson of all is this: if history can erase civilizations overnight, then the stories we tell, the memories we keep, and the ruins we preserve may be the only way to keep their voices alive.